White House Press Secretary JeanPierre doubled down on describing January 6th as an insurrection after Tucker Carlson released bombshell footage of what happened. Here she is at the podium yesterday talking about this.
Anybody who watched that video with their own eyes in a real way and saw what happened on that day would disagree with what was just stated. The president has been very clear. January 6th was the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War, and we should be focused on making sure that never happens again. And so we are certainly, we agree. I know Minority Leader and Senator Schumer have already said this and would hope that keeping the Capitol and Congress safe and secure remains congressional leaders' #1 goal, and that should be our focus.
Naturally, our friends at Late Night Television couldn't help get involved. Here's Stephen Colbert.
Thanks in large part to the former president. There's a whole industry of people who make a good living trying to make you think you're insane. Well, I make a very good living reminding you that you're not. Now, you would think that once the people gaslighting you on a daily basis have been revealed to be liars, say in multiple text messages and a $1.6 billion court filing by Dominion Voting Systems, they would pump the brakes. But apparently, some people are just addicted to being dicks. Case in point, Fox News host and toddler sucking on a dog turd, Tucker Carlson, cherry-picked innocuous clips to try to rewrite what we all saw happening with our own eyes on January 6th.
They were peaceful, they were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists, they were sightseers.
Sightseers? Sightseers, really? Grab a rock, honey, we're going to the Louvre. I want to peacefully smear my crap on the Mona Lisa. See if she keeps smiling after that.
All right, so just to go to the JeanPierre clip first. Again, I don't know why Democrats are playing it this way. Because here's the thing. Most people agree that what happened at the Capitol at 1/6 was deeply inappropriate, wrong, and embarrassing for the Republican Party, or at least for Trumpism.
Trump. Yeah.
However, it is also true that the real story of trying to steal the election was not what happened on the lawn of the Capitol on 1/6, but what happened in the weeks before when Donald Trump was making calls to people like the Georgia Secretary of State, asking him to rig the count so that he would win in a critical, close state like that. That is the story. And since the beginning, Democrats have decided to downplay or emphasize that story less than the story of what happened literally at the Capitol that day, which was very attenuated from any actual outcome where an election result was changed, right? What Donald Trump was doing beforehand could have led to a different outcome if the officials in the various states that he tried to influence did not have as much integrity. And mind you, these are Republican officials that stood up to Donald Trump and said, no, I'm not going to rig this election result for you.
And court after court, sometimes with Republican justices on these courts.
Correct. So the Democrats standing at the podium, JeanPierre standing at the podium and saying 1/6 was the closest that we've had to having our democracy overturned since the Civil War or whatever it was. You know, it raises this desire to object even from someone like me, whereas I wouldn't have objected to the broader story about the election denialism and the effort that the Trump really sincerely did make.
Well, the times
Trump made,
US
not these people
were murdered. I mean,
sure. I mean, you quibble with the analogy, but
yes.
It certainly was an attempt to undermine democracy. Mm-hmm. It just happened more so because of Donald Trump and not because of the QAnon shaman or anybody else.
Right. And Donald Trump should have been held responsible for it. He was correctly, in my view, impeached. They should have voted to remove him. Many Republicans did, not enough, but a lot of them did. It's the most bipartisan vote to end the sitting head ever taken in this country. That was the mechanism for holding him accountable. And you know what? If he runs again, he was not held accountable by that. If he runs again, it'll be up to voters to decide. That's democracy. And they keep saying it's a threat to democracy, but then acting like these very institutional gatekeeping, guard-keeping things need to be done to prevent the people from weighing in or deciding. Like, if you believe in democracy, you have to trust the people to not endorse this kind of thing. And, we've actually had really good indication that the people will not endorse this kind of thing.
Right.
Because candidates, even among Republicans who have leaned into this, lost decisively where others would not have.
Now, here's the thing,
So we can trust in democracy.
Here's the problem, and here's where I think Democrats and some of these critics that we just watched clips of are on stronger footing. As a consequence of this Dominion lawsuit, we now know that even people at Fox News, Richard Murdoch, Tucker Carlson, Rupert Murdoch agreed with us. So we know now that Rupert Murdoch said in these documents that have come out and the testimony that came out of that lawsuit that he believed that TV network host at his own network, Fox, went too far. That's a quote. We know that Tucker Carlson said of Trump, "I hate him passionately because of the box that he was being put in of having to make some excuses for, dare I say, cover for Trump's behavior as Trump was engaging in all of this election denialism." And at the same time that behind the scenes, there was this acknowledgement by people at Fox that Donald Trump was kind of off the rails. The public-facing discourse at Fox News was to continue to do this kind of soft shoe apologia for the man. And that I think is a legitimate concern because they're in effect misleading their viewers and, again, participating in a kind of politics that is ultimately hurting the Republican Party. And by the way, Tucker Carlson also acknowledges in some of this discourse that this Trumpism, this election denialism, is actually hurting the Republican Party, which is why it is, again, so confusing for him.
That's why he defenestrated the chief architect of the view that the election had been stolen, Sidney Powell, very aggressively on his show.
So this is the question that comes up. What is the goal of the current messaging around 1/6, which of course is not in and of itself election denial, but the people there were there protesting the outcome of the election because they believed it had been stolen because Donald Trump told them it had been stolen. So how can one say that they're in a position where they are speaking out against election denialism when, look, the footage itself is neutral. Footage is footage. Right. You can put footage out there and disclaim these people shouldn't have been there. They were there because they believe the election had been stolen, and it has not been stolen. But also, what they did there has been misrepresented in some ways. That's perfectly legitimate. It's not clear to me that that is what Tucker Carlson is doing in his monologues and in his coverage of that footage.
Yeah, but as you just said, I mean, I don't know what Tucker views as his role, but it can just be from a journalistic standpoint. Releasing these video footage, it might be in the best interest of the public to see more about what happened. Sure,
but you say we don't know a lot about how Tucker sees his own role.
I don't know if Tucker sees his view as advancing the cause of the Republican Party.
Well, we do have some insight into what Tucker Carlson.
I don't view my role as advancing the cause of a political party.
We do have some insight into what Tucker sees as his role when we see him in these Dominion lawsuit communications, expressing a personal view, but feeling compelled to have a public-facing view because ultimately the role of the network as a whole, I don't know if he wants that to be the case, but the role of the network as a whole is to provide a degree of cover for the behaviors and positions that are taken by Donald Trump, or at least a belief that going out too hard against Donald Trump, contradicting Donald Trump, will financially hurt Fox News as a company, and that does not speak to decisions being made because of journalistic integrity, which I think there's an argument that releasing this footage is that. Like, there's all kinds of reasons you could want to release this footage. The thing that Democrats are responding to, and independents and Republicans who are tired of Trump shenanigans are responding to, is this idea that the journalistic output is constrained by the fundamental principle that you just can't go against Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, there has to be some limitation to that principle, even in terms of It does not seem to me, I could be wrong, in a conservative media's best interest to just defend Trump to the mat anymore. We're talking about a dwindling base, a base sapped of enthusiasm for a political figure who is utterly disloyal, who slams Fox News every day in his own messaging. He feels betrayed. I mean, his view is not that Fox defended him or helped him in any way. His view is that they stabbed him in the back like no organization ever has. So at some point, you got to cut this guy loose for yourself.
It's interesting. Part of the narrative about why it was that Kevin McCarthy...
His view is they all hate him and want to see him fail.
Part of the narrative about why Kevin McCarthy chose to release these tapes is that after 1/6, in the media aftermath, he came out condemning Trump, condemning these actions like a lot of Republicans did. And Kevin McCarthy has been out of the good graces of that part of the party as a consequence since then. And part of what we experienced with all of the force the vote stuff in January was that this more Trump-aligned faction was making a public criticism of Kevin McCarthy and the decisions that he's made, anti-Trump positions that he's made in the past, establishment positions that he's taken in the past. And some have argued that him giving this footage up is him showing contrition and trying to get back into Trump's good graces, which again, it's not clear to me that the party has benefited, to your point, by constantly making political decisions on the basis of, will Trump like me again?
Yeah. What did he say at CPAC? I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
Yeah.
Oh boy. More Rising right after this.